My name is Scott Brooks, and this is my studio. We call this the Creativity Grotto. We built this a couple of years ago during the pandemic, and it's a great place to work. It was just an empty space before, and my partner Tom put that up, and it works great. But I also work on the couch. There's a lot of, in the current show, I call them couch drawings, and those are just small little drawings that I can do while I'm watching TV. I paint standing up almost 75% of the time. So by the end of the day, after I've been working for a while, I just want to wind down. So I'll sit on the couch and work, and it's very comfortable and relaxing. It's a good way to wind down. Back in the bedroom and all the way back through the hallway, that's all storage space. I have a space up in the on the fourth floor with storage, and so there's a lot of room and pretty much everything I need right here. I built this. I built the TV stand. I built the Jesus bar, and then I built my desk. It's fantastic, and it's much better than having everything just stacked up and falling over. At this point, I've been collecting old vintage frames, and either building canvases or finding canvases or space, or pieces of wood or panels that fit the frames. And because framing is always probably the most expensive and kind of the biggest pain in the ass part of a show, because it's the last thing you do, and you're already stressed out, and you've got work to finish up, and then you also have to frame everything. So having frames on hand or ready to go in the beginning is makes things much easier at the end. So I can put a lot of stuff in there, and there's also storage under the bed. So this bed lifts up. Those are all drawings and framing material and matting material. And my exhibit, Common People, at Gallery Blue Door, is it's all work mostly done in the last year, and there's a mix of portraits and what I call couch drawings. And it's the title comes from a song that was originally done by Pulp and was covered by William Shatner, and it just seemed like a good title for the show, considering the theme and what was in it. I thought it was perfect, and also just for this time and what's going on in the current political atmosphere, it seemed like a fitting title. The people in the paintings they're my friends, they're my neighbors, they're people I work with, and they're people I have drinks with, and they're just friends. And I've always painted people around me. I've always painted the people that I see and that I hang out with, and that's not unusual. That's just the way it's always been for most artists in history. They paint the people around them, and I do hire models on occasion, but just as often people ask me if they can model, and so it depends on a lot of things, mostly my time, but there's some fascinating people in Baltimore, and it's great fun to paint them. In the past, I've painted a lot of burlesque performers. I painted drag queens since I was back in Flint. They're just the costumes and the style and the color and the flamboyance. I think it's a lot of fun, and it makes great art, I think. And it's also a snapshot of our time and of where I live and where we live. And again, we're lucky to have this neighborhood. We're lucky to have Baltimore, and because not everybody has that luxury. And so I'm happy to take advantage of that. I'm happy to share it. I first started doing oil paintings probably when I was about 15. I was a teenager, and a friend of mine had his mom was selling him, and I'd always been into art and had been known, to draw and to paint. And at that point, I'd probably only used the cheap watercolors that you would get in school. But she had they were selling a container, like a cigar box full of old oil paints. And so I don't know, either they gave them to us or we bought them for like $10 or whatever it was. So I had I had no idea how they worked, but I started painting oils back when I was a teenager, and I did portraits of our pets and just landscapes, of course, growing up with Bob Ross and wildlife stuff. So that's where the oil paint started, and I learned how to more techniques and how to do it myself. Uh, and originally, I painted very quote unquote realistically, or as realistically as a teenager, and but I've always stuck with oil paint, and I think my style it's it went towards my goal was probably more hyper realistic, but my talent wasn't that. So, and I think I graduated after it took a long time, but I think at some point I started veering away from trying to be an academic figurative painter with a capital A and capital F. And I just started playing around with it. And I had done a lot of cartooning and, and characters, which were generally had big heads and eyes were far apart. But they were only done for cartoons. So I, I was kind of tired of getting into that mold of trying to make everything exactly the right place. And I felt that was kind of limiting. So I started using a little more exaggerated proportions, and the eyes. I spread the eyes apart, and at first they were really far apart, and that's where my and that was probably back in around the early 2000, 2002, 2003. But now I see a lot of artists are using a similar style. And there were several people I think we started doing it at the same time. And for whatever reason, it's also based on just look at Charlie Brown and look at any comics, cartoons, and usually the heads are larger and their eyes are expressive. And so I think it was a takeoff on that because we were just all used to seeing that in Saturday morning cartoons or in comics. So I'm kind of pulling it back a little bit and being a little more academic now, and doing things a little more classically, academically figurative. It kind of came out of I think the Dodd ruling, and uh, but it's been going on for a while. I really think that women and women's rights uh, have been so torn apart. But women are going to have to stand up. There's still so many women that are voting against their best interests. So liberty is portrayed as a woman, but it's because women keep us alive. Women and mothers, they the fathers are out hunting or drinking or doing whatever. So I think it's always left to the women to keep us alive on every level, including I think as a country. I think it's up to them to step up and take things into their own hands and protect their self interest. So this painting is all women, although back there, I think it's too far away to tell, but I think these can be they could be interpreted as drag queens or trans women, and but it's all yeah, Liberty leading her people, and the dragon represents uh, I think the patriarchy, I would say, and and we have the dove of peace over here, and the explosion. While it looks violent, there's actually it's the explosion is actually all these little cute little animals coming out, uh, kittens and rabbits and puppies. And so, and you really have to get up close to see that. Maybe when it's finished, that'll be a little bit clearer. But I think somebody asked me recently about the detail in my work, and I think the detail, it brings people in, and people want to come in and look at it, and sometimes they may not like what they see, but it does draw them in. And besides being fun for me, and these characters down here will have iPhones, and so they'll be lit up with LEDs back here. So and then we'll have this giant fireball lighting up the sky back there. The highest compliment that I can get is if someone buys my work and puts it up in their house. It's all meant to be bought, and I mean, that's ultimately, I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for it to get out into the world in some manner. And I think I've been very lucky that pretty much everything I've done has gone out. I mean, I have a lot of work here at the studio, but eventually the turnaround, it may take a couple of years, but people do buy it, and most pieces find a home. And I heard recently that it sometimes takes 6 months to a year for people to adjust to new work from an artist, and that new work isn't automatically just accepted. So I take that to heart, so I don't get too disappointed if things don't sell right away, because most things do sell, and my work is unique enough, and it's not for everybody, to say the least. But there are people out there who do connect with it, and I think those are the people who and they will eventually find it, and one way or the other. And every piece, I guess it would be like a house or a partner, is that they find the right piece. And some people, we go back and forth for years, and then the right piece comes along, or something flips, and it's like, oh, this is the one I'll take, and then it's gone. So, and I don't feel bad. I never regret. I do have a few pieces that are close to me, that I do feel a twinge when they go away, but not very often. Usually I'm very happy to see something go, and see an empty space on the wall where it used to be.